You didn't let go, you just stopped looking at it. Because if you really let go, this wouldn't still affect you. Not like this, not in random moments. Not when you least expect it. Not when your mind is finally quiet and suddenly. It's there again, not as a memory, but as something active. Something that still has access to you. And that's what doesn't make sense. Because on the surface, it's over. No messages. No contact. No visible connection. But somewhere deeper something never actually ended. There are connections that don't break, they just go silent, and silence is dangerous. Because your mind doesn't read silence as an ending. It reads it as, to be continued. That's why it lingers, not loudly, not constantly, but precisely enough to stay alive inside you, a thought, a flash, a feeling that doesn't belong to the present but refuses to stay in the past. And you try to explain it, you call it nostalgia. But nostalgia feels warm. This doesn't. This pulls you in. This disrupts you. This shows up uninvited and acts like it still has a place in your life. Because in a way, it does. Not in reality. But in your system. Your mind is built to close things. To finish patterns. To resolve tension. To understand. And when it can't, it doesn't let go. It loops. Quietly. Precisely. Relentlessly. You don't choose to go back. Your mind takes you there. Again. And again. And again. Not to remember. To finish. That's the part most people don't realize. You're not stuck on the person. You're stuck on the unfinished version of the story. The version where you said more. The version where they stayed. The version where it made sense. And your brain keeps reopening that file looking for an ending that never came. But here's where it gets deeper. At some point, it stops being about them. And starts being about you. Because you didn't just connect to that person, you connected to who you became around them. The version of you that felt more alive, more seen, more open. Maybe even more real. And when they left, that version of you didn't fully come back. So now it feels like you lost more than a person. It feels like you lost access to a part of yourself. And that's what keeps pulling you back. Not love, not them, access. Access to a feeling you haven't been able to recreate since. And your mind knows that. So it keeps returning. Not because it's weak, because it's trying to recover something. But the more it returns, the more it reinforces the loop. You think about them, gives you feel something, gives your brain marks it as important, gives you go back again. And slowly, this connection becomes less about reality and more about repetition. You're no longer reacting to them, you're reacting to the pattern. And that's why it feels so real, because neurologically it is. This isn't just emotional. This is structural. Your brain has linked them equals feeling, and until that link breaks, the connection doesn't. Even if they're gone, even if you never speak again, even if your life moves forward, that link stays active. And this is where most people get trapped, because it feels like maybe it's not over. But that's not what's happening. It's not unfinished between you. It's unfinished inside you. And those are two completely different things. You feel it in small, almost invisible ways. In reactions that don't match the situation. In thoughts that appear without permission. In moments where your mood shifts and you don't even know why. In dreams that feel too real. Too detailed. To present. That's not coincidence. That's your mind still processing something it never got to complete. And until it does, it keeps the door open. Not for them, for the pattern. And that's the part that's hard to accept. Because it means this isn't about waiting. It's about understanding. And right now, you don't fully understand why this still has power over you. Which means it still does. And until you see it clearly, it won't stop. Not because they'll come back, but because something inside you is still trying to finish what never ended. And in part 2, you're going to realize something that changes everything. The reason it still feels open has nothing to do with them. And once you see what it actually is, you won't experience this connection the same way again. It still feels open, like something unfinished, like something that could still continue if the timing was different, if something small had changed, and that feeling is so convincing it almost feels like truth, but it isn't, because what you're experiencing is not connection. It's activation. You're not being pulled back to them, you're being pulled back into a state your mind hasn't resolved. And that changes everything. Because it means this was never about them staying. It was about something in you that got triggered. and never fully settled. Think about it. It's not every person you can't let go of. It's always a specific one, the one who felt intense to fast, left without clear closure, or made you feel something you hadn't felt in a long time. That's not random, that's a psychological imprint. Your brain marks intense, unresolved experiences as important, not because they were healthy, but because they were incomplete. And incomplete things don't fade, they repeat. That's why it comes back. Not as a memory, as a loop. But here's the part no one tells you, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're not holding on to them. You're holding on to the version of yourself that only existed when you didn't have closure. Let that land, because it means the feeling you think you're missing was built inside uncertainty, inside tension. Inside not knowing. That special connection you felt. It wasn't just connection. It was heightened emotion caused by instability. Intensity is not the same as depth, but your brain doesn't always know the difference. So it tags it as, this mattered more. And now it keeps bringing you back there, not because it was right, because it was unresolved. And here's the hardest truth. If it had fully played out, it probably wouldn't feel this powerful. Because clarity kills illusion. What you're attached to is not what it was. It's what it could have been. And what could have been is the most addictive story your mind can create, because it has no ending. Which means it can always feel unfinished, which means it can always feel alive. But it's not alive. It's suspended. And your mind keeps replaying it, trying to finally land it somewhere. But it never lands, because there's nothing there to land on. Just projections. Just imagined versions. Just emotional echoes. And the more you return, the more real it feels. But you're not reconnecting. You're reinforcing. Reinforcing the loop. Reinforcing the attachment. Reinforcing the idea that this matters more than it does. And slowly it becomes part of your identity. I'm the one who can't let this go. And that's the final trap. Because once something becomes identity, you stop questioning it, you protect it, you keep it alive, even when it's hurting you. So the question is no longer, why can't I let them go? The real question is, what part of me am I trying to return to? Because that's what you're actually chasing. Not them. Not the connection. Not the past. A feeling, a state, a version of you that you haven't found again. And until you separate those two things, you stay stuck. Because you keep looking for yourself in someone who was never the source. They were the trigger, not the origin. And once you see that, everything shifts. You stop romanticizing the connection. You start understanding the mechanism. You stop asking what if it comes back, and start asking why did this affect me this deeply? That's where your power is. Not in waiting. Not in hoping. Not in reopening something that already closed in reality. But in seeing clearly what's still open inside you. Because once you see it, you don't need them anymore to resolve it. You don't need closure from them. You need clarity from yourself. And clarity does something most people aren't ready for. It removes the illusion. And without the illusion, the intensity fades, the loop weakens, the attachment loosens. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because your mind can't stay attached to something it fully understands. And that's the shift. This is not unfinished between you. It was unfinished awareness. And now you see it. And once you truly see it, you won't experience this the same way again. Not because you forced yourself to let go, but because there's nothing left to hold on to.